Hey everyone, it's Dave, and I'd like to welcome you today as we learn about how to host a BLI Webex event. 99% of the events that we're going to be hosting in Webex anymore are going to be in the bli-meetings.webex.com room. If you're watching this video, you've probably already received your own credentials, have your own room, and if the meeting that you are about to host was created in your own room, in other words, if you scheduled it yourself, you can simply go into your calendar in your room and start the meeting from there. But what we're going to be looking at is this process from the perspective of a trainer who's been invited as an alternate host. In which case, you'll be going to your calendar, and bear in mind, if you are using Outlook, and you got an invitation, you clicked on accept, and it looked like that email disappeared. It hasn't actually disappeared. The way Outlook handles invitations is by deleting the emails and creating an event. So all of the information you had in that email is now in your calendar. Double clicking on the event, of course, in your calendar is going to pull up all the information you need, including that start event button. Now, since you are the alternate host, which is basically giving you all the same privileges that the default host has, you have a start event button rather than a join button. Because of that additional privilege, Webex wants to confirm who you are, so it's going to bring you to a login screen to ask you for your credentials to log you into that room. And into the summary page for that event. This is the same place you would have gone if you had just logged into the room in the first place, if you had scheduled it, but you're coming to the same place either way. The Start Now button is now on the right side of your screen. Clicking on that will launch Webex. Presumably you've already installed the app by now, and you have a Start Event button to get that going. If this is your first time using this app, the button at the leftmost side of all of the Webex panel icons is going to look like a phone instead of a microphone with a line through it. Clicking on that is going to give you the option to join either via computer audio or by phone. If you don't have that, or if you would like to change your audio options, you can click on the ellipsis on the right, the three dots, and change your audio connection yourself. I usually recommend computer for audio as the best default. If you have a decent microphone and speakers on your laptop or your desktop, if you either don't have the proper hardware or for whatever reason would prefer to use your phone, you have two choices. I would highly recommend the first choice of having Webex call you. What that does is ensures that there will be a seamless transition from your computer to your phone, and that Webex knows which person in the Webex call will be calling in on what number. If you opt to call in yourself, clicking on the View button here to the right will give you not only the phone number, but two other very critical pieces of information: the access code, without which you wouldn't be able to join this specific meeting, and just as important, you must enter your attendee ID. If you don't enter that attendee ID, Webex won't know whose phone number is calling in, and it will not connect you to the session that you're already in. So you must enter phone number to dial in, access code to get in the correct meeting, and attendee ID to let Webex know who you are when you're calling in. All of that stuff is streamlined if you have Webex call you, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You can just type in your own phone number and have Webex call you. It's very simple. Now that you're in, you also want to be able to give the same guidance to your participants. So we have, because there's so much to remember when you're hosting a Webex session, whether you're the presenter or the technical host, we created a document to help you remember everything, a checklist, and I recommend either printing this out and having it next to you on paper or having it on a separate screen, but do make sure you go through every item here. Because it's so detailed and there are so many points to go through, we're not going to go through all of them, but I do want to highlight a couple of the most important parts here. Between 10 and 15 minutes prior to starting the meeting, you want to make sure you reach out to any attendees that have joined, welcome them, and give them some guidelines about some of the things they need to know to run the meeting. First of all, we do not use Q&A. So you want to recommend that if Q&A has not been turned off for this session and they see a Q&A panel, usually on the right side of their screen, that they go to the right of the Q&A panel, click on that X button to get rid of it. What we will be monitoring in all of our Webex meetings instead is the chat window. If you again guide them down to the bottom part of their screen where they have the Webex panel of icons, ask them to look for the one that looks like a speech bubble. It's usually toward the right side of all the buttons they have available. Clicking on that will pull up the chat window on the right. And from there, please guide them to the All Panelists option in the drop-down window and have them just write a quick hello or something to indicate that they can hear you. By default, all of our attendees are in listen-only mode. They will not have the option of writing to each other. They can only chat with you as one of the panelists. And as host, the other thing you'll want to keep an eye on is this participant list. Clicking on that will pull up your participants on the right. If you have any other panelists, they'll show up at the top. If you have attendees, you will have a blue attendee, view all attendees link directly underneath this. I don't have any attending, so I don't have that link. But clicking on that will allow you to see how many attendees and who they are. And you can communicate with them directly if you need to. This view also is where you will, if you are the technical host and you want to make another panelist the presenter, you can right-click on their name, hover over Change Role To, and then select Presenter from your list. Another thing you'll want to do for your attendees, and possibly any panelists that join, is give them the dial-in information in case they are not able to join on audio on their computer. And again, to do that, you can either go to the audio connection link, or in the upper left-hand corner here, you have a tiny little information button, and you can simply copy and paste the United States toll-free and toll numbers along with, actually I would recommend, if it'll let us select all of them, it won't. So we're going to have to do them one at a time. We can copy the phone number into our chat. And I have to remember now that I'm on a Mac, not on a Windows machine, so I have different keystrokes for copy and paste. And then the same thing for the access code. And you can verbally be telling them if they need to call in, or type it in yourself, access code, colon, and then paste in the access code, just so that they have that available in case they can't connect to audio and or if they can't hear you. The last thing I want to remind you of is, and again, this is on the checklist along with many other things, but remember to click that record button before you start. It will give you one more button to click, the red record button, once you've started. And it will confirm that it's going. You can get rid of the record button and then simply hit the same button to stop it at the end. And one other thing that's very important for you to know as host, especially if you are the presenter, once you are sharing something, sharing your screen, sharing a file, or sharing a presentation, which I'll do here. This looks like the open pointing, an open box with an upward pointing arrow coming out of it. And I can share either my entire screen, which means anything that's showing on my screen is going to show to the participants, or I can select my PowerPoint or PDF or whatever it is I want to share as an application, or if I want to upload a file, I can do that too. Any of those options are fine as long as you know what the implications for each are. But watch what happens as soon as I click share my screen. Then my buttons shoot to the top of my screen, and so they've gone from the bottom, and I have to hover over the top edge of my screen in order to get my buttons down. They look a little different than they did before, but it's important for you to know as presenter that that's why the buttons seem to disappear. They've just jumped to the top and they've become a floating panel at the top instead of the fixed panel at the bottom. Once I stop sharing, my buttons are at the bottom again. I hope that answers all of your questions about hosting a BLI Webex event. If you have any other questions, feel free to ping me directly, and thank you for watching.